Thanks for staying with us on the conversation. Earlier, we made discussions on the migrants who were killed, unfortunately, while trying to cross the Spanish border. And we've seen a lot of people, the UN, the AU, who have called for thorough investigations into the matter, especially if there have been allegations of human rights abuses on the African migrants while crossing the border. Now, we're turning our attention to Cameroon, where at least 30 people, including women and children, were killed during clashes over land between neighboring communities in Cameroon's southwest region. The massacre was carried out on Saturday and Sunday in the village of Bakinjo in the Akawa commune, a few kilometers from the Nigerian border. Now, a spokesman for the Presbyterian Church in Cameroon said the fight between the Oliti and Mesaga Ecole groups in Akaya was very violent. The tragedy between the Oliti and Mesaga Ecole ethnic groups took place at the southwest region, one of Cameroon's two English-speaking regions, where a deadly conflict has been raging for more than 5 years between armed separatist groups and the police, with civilians being the main victims. And now joining us live for this conversation, we have Njeck, sylvanus, a journalist. Thank you so much for joining us on this conversation. So, Sylvanus, if you can hear me, let's begin with this. What exactly led to the land dispute between the Oliti and the Mesaga Ecole of Akwa, and how long has this been going on?
Okay, excuse me. It's Metuge Stanley talking, non-Njeck sylvanus.
Oh, Stanley, sorry about that.
I guess. All right. So what has been happening is something that has been existing for a good number of, for a longer period now. We saw this happening on the 29th of April, 2022, when the Oloti people, they came to attack, the Mesaga Ecole people in the Akwa, Akwa subdivision, make up the Manu division of the southwest region of Cameroon. And, the Mesaga people as well had to retaliate because it's about a fertile land that the two tribes have been fighting for years now. Both of them want to have possession of the land, as we all know the vital importance of land, especially in a community like that of Akwa, with a rich fertile soil that they have that way. So they've been struggling to see how they can have it. But again, from according to a report that we have, the land actually belongs to the Mesaga Ecole people. So the Oloti people, they had to attack them, and the Mesaga people as well had to retaliate. And in the course of the retaliating, on Sunday the 29th, or better still the 26th of June 2022, then we saw what happened, where the Mesaga people had to bring on board close to 100 armed men, heavily armed men, to attack the Mesaga Ecole people in the Bakinjo village, as you earlier mentioned. And what happened. A good number of people were killed. According to reports we have, some reports say 30 died, others say 32 people died, because I'm looking at the two sources that we have right here. The source from the Ministry of Defense, Cameroon Ministry of Defense, their spokesperson, the person of Navy Captain Atomfak Ngemo Cyril, and also the authority and the leader of the PCC, that's the Presbyterian Church in Cameroon, Right Reverend Funky Samuel Fama, who also came up with a release. So, what also happened that Sunday and that weekend, there was the funeral of one member of parliament who lost his brother. And in the course of the event, they had to stop the funeral that was taking place that Sunday, and killing the number of people that they killed, about 30 to 32, and also even the corpse, the dead person who was, whom they were carrying a funeral for, was also a victim, because his corpse was also burned in that attack. And as I mentioned, it has been something that many people have debunked, have decried, have condemned, especially the voice of the moderator of the PCC, who has described the act as a as a shameful, and why not, as a shameful act and inhuman acts, being carried out on God's children, because he is a religious authority. While the Ministry of Defense, according to their spokesperson, has also taken the commitment that the government of Cameroon will leave no stone unturned as they will deploy, officials there, military elements there to make sure that things are put under control. But as we speak, report reaching us say a good number of people have fled away from the village because of the fear of the unknown. Despite the fact that they killed people, they also had to burn. They had to burn down villages or houses. The burned down houses. Even the hospital that they have out there in Akwaya was also burned, and also some villagers, as Ella told you, also died in the course, including 5 Nigerians were also involved in that arson attack that happened over the weekend in Akwaya.
I must say that it's a very tragic situation. A funeral turned into more deaths. It's quite a sad one now. And somehow Cameroon is not new to these issues of land dispute. Now, the northwest and southwest regions have been the scene of deadly conflict between armed groups calling for the independence of a state they call Ambazonia. Now, what exactly are their grievances?
The grievances, of course, we know what happened before the start of the crisis. Was quite legitimate. We had that of the lawyers who came out outrightly to, to cry that the norms of their practice should be respected. Knowing that Cameroon is, is a country that has 2 systems: the Anglo-Saxon system and the French system, be it in education, be it in the judiciary. So they came out to ask for their rights to be respected, and why not? Appoint people who can be able to express themselves, during court sessions in English, not people who come and speak French. Of course, we all know that that's one of the grievances. Even teachers themselves also had to cry out that they want the educational system of the Anglo-Saxon educational system of Cameroon should be respected. So that was just the genesis, and since then the crisis has gone out of hand. It has gone out of hand, and we're in a situation whereby it's very difficult to even know exactly who is the perpetrator of such an act, because today we see citizens who wear military uniforms and carry out a gruesome attack like what we have just for the so much so that the military should be indicted, and the reverse as well is true. It's kind of a dicey situation that we face, that we find ourselves right now in the country, and knowing that the people who have guns, they don't have uniforms. So it's difficult to really, single them out amongst the population, because there are people around. And knowing that Akwaya as well shares borders with about 3 states out there in Nigeria, so it's even reported that they might have, left neighboring Nigeria and came to Cameroon, carried out the act, and they rushed back, and so it's quite difficult. But we're waiting for the government of our country that has promised to do everything possible that we shouldn't have such an act again in Cameroon.
All right, thank you so much, Stanley. I would like to bring in Njeck Sylvanus, who's also a journalist in Cameroon. Now, human rights activist Kawala tweeted on Monday that the state's inability to provide basic services such as water, schools and jobs is unquestionably linked to the ability of extremist groups to recruit. Now, how true is this in the political stability in Cameroon?
Well, good afternoon to you. I think that what Kawala actually said could have some roots, but will not be the core or the main cause of what's happening today in the country, where you have lots of political instability. I generally think that from gathering information we've gathered on the ground and from the field, you begin to understand that the biggest problem we face in our country, it's not the problem of water and food for Cameroonians. No, it's a problem of equality. Okay, people want to be equal between one another. They want to see equality between French and English. Because the administration is a French-dominated administration. Secondly, I think that history too has a role to play, because some historic facts we've not been able to actually get the best part of our history to Cameroonians. So this too has an issue to play. But what's happening today in Cameroon, I think that if you look at it from the genesis, like what Metuge said a while ago, it all started from teachers and lawyers strike that provoked the conflict that has been going on now for more than up to 5 years in our country, Cameroon. Now, the problem we have in our country is because we have a system which is actually a government, French-dominated government, where the English-speaking Cameroonians believe that somehow somehow they are limited from the national cake. I give some basic examples. People in English-speaking Cameroon believe that no matter how intelligent a child is, the child can only serve in most of the administration as assistants. That's the marginalization. People also believe that no matter how intelligent and how super good you are, you can only end at the position of a prime minister. They look at it like marginalization. And then people also believe that the English part of Cameroon deserves more. That's why if you look at the core of all of this, it is actually the form of the state of Cameroon that people want. There are Cameroonians who are divided along the lines. Those of the English Cameroon, the majority will tell you that, okay, we want a federation, a federated country, just like you have a Federal Republic of Nigeria. Even though most of them don't understand the challenges of federation. Others will tell you that, okay, we want as secessionists, we want to secede and build our own country, just like the British who govern us as part of Nigeria. And some will tell you that no, we like a regional or a centralist system like the one we currently have in place. It's the kind of divide you have within the Cameroonian society. And talking about the fact that people don't like basics, I think that if you look at Cameroon and you look at Cameroon in the eyes of so many other African countries, we face almost the same problems in Africa. Problems where you have difficulties to have access to electricity, difficulties to have access to hospitals. So I want to believe that the problem is just equality. People want to be equal in Cameroon. Cameroonians are hungry for a meaningful democracy. They want democracy in Cameroon. They want merit to be given a place in Cameroon. And then also, to me, hampered by there's so much corruption in the country, this might have also pushed so many Cameroonians to lose hope in the system and thereby pushing them, on the other hand, to, or take arms. I think that what Kawala said, she tweeted as a politician who wants to make a point, but I think that her point is not very strong from the information we're actually gathering on the ground. And just to add that if you look at what's happened today in Akwaya, it is not the first time, and it is not the first locality. You must have heard about things that have happened in other places in Cameroon. You must have heard about the Gambo massacre in Cameroon. You must have heard about other massacres that have come here and there. But the situation in Akwaya is particular because Akwaya is an enclave. It's difficult. You go to Akwaya through Nigeria. I mean, it's a Cameroonian territory, but you actually go there through Nigeria. It's difficult to even understand. They use the Naira in Akwaya, not the CFA francs. It's a vast area of terrain which is quite big and shares border with Nigeria, like Metuge said a while ago. So people believe that if security will be given priority in a place like Akwaya, because even what was happening there on that day, those who came, the army who came there were very confident. They know that even if you have to call security for them to leave from Manfe to Nigeria, then enter Akwaya, or fly through the boats to cross the river, they must have carried out their acts and then leave. So the Minister of Defense in Cameroon, through the spokesman, actually issued a communique blaming the attack on separatists. And according to the government communique, separatists actually carried out this attack because there was a politician in that locality who was actually celebrating a funeral, and I think that he was the target. That's a government version of the communique, but the Presbyterian Church in Cameroon has also come out with a communique. Important to note that the moderator of the PCC, the President Church in Cameroon, is actually from that area. That's actually his area. So he actually said that it's an intertribal war where two communities are battling for parcels of land and all of that. So it's a confusing situation. I think that we are still grappling with the information and trying to see what will happen. Yeah.
All right, Sylvanus, I'll stay with you because you brought out some very valid points. Now, you talked about equality leading to the problems going on in major rural areas in Cameroon. And then you also talked about armed men being recruited. You said that the armed men were fully equipped. Now, some have blamed new arms shipment filtering through the communities for the recent upsurge in violence. So, Sylvanus, what is the level of arms control in Cameroon?
I think that Cameroon, the first problem we have in Cameroon is that our borders are not, our borders are very porous. Take, for example, Cameroon shares her longest border with Nigeria. Stretching from the entire southwest region of Cameroon, northwest region of Cameroon, down to the northern part of Cameroon. That's the border we have with Nigeria. And secondly, you also realize that most of the arms, Cameroon is actually our neighbors. You have the Central African Republic. We've had a hell of crisis in the Central African Republic. And of course, lots of arms have moved illegally to that country. We've also had a country like Chad, which is stable, but not very stable politically. And then next to us, we have groups that are operating in Nigeria, like the Niger Delta, that have been active in Nigeria, bordering Cameroon. And then you have the Boko Haram up north country. Now, the problem we have in our country, it's actually difficulties controlling our borders. Because the fact that we cannot control our mighty border with Cameroon, the long border with Chad, it is difficult to control the inflow, how arms actually move move into the country. That's why if you look at border towns in Cameroon, I give you some example like Akwaya, which we just mentioned.
Yeah.
You take a town like Mamfe, which is a chief town in Manyu Division, Southwest region, which is actually where Akwaya, the headquarters, is supposed to be. Mamfe is very close to Nigeria. Arms easily flow through that road. And of course, if you go now to the Northwest region, you go to places like Bui, which is in the Northwest region in Bamenda area. It's close to Nigeria. Separatists there are fully armed. So we cannot say with certainty, though, that all of this arm is coming through neighboring countries. No, maybe they could also be a possibility that some of these arms too are passing through some other channels that we're not able to place our hands on. Because during war, it's difficult to understand how people who have arms right in the heart of towns like Boya and towns like Limbe, which are towns that are further inside that we don't expect to see things like that. So it's difficult. We can't really place our hands where those arms are coming from. But I think that somehow there should be a connection. Maybe, who knows, maybe between some senior Cameroonians or some other people who are smuggling arms into the country, maybe even through our major ports in this country.
All right, Sylvanus, thank you so much. Now, I'll come over to you, Stanley, because he has brought the issue of border control now. And we know that, unfortunately, in West African province, we've seen a rise of political instability, of insecurity rising. So how has this conflict in Cameroon affected other border regions within the particular area?
Yes, definitely. You know that Africa for long has been crying to have a united Africa, whereby we can be able to to scrutinize and why not make sure that our borders all have apt security. But again, it's quite difficult. It's just quite difficult, especially in remote areas like Akwaya, which my brother earlier mentioned. It's very, very difficult. Accessing the terrain is very difficult. And, from what I told you earlier, about 5 Nigerians died in a recent arson attack in Akwaya. What were Nigerians doing there? It's just to show you that they are also people of the community, because it's just closer to Nigeria. So you see Cameroonians and Nigerians living like one people, like brothers and sisters, just like what we have in Bakas. Even though it's a territory under the sovereignty of Cameroon. Indeed, it's been a cry of the people that we should have a very strong border. It's really the wish of the people that we should have a very strong border, because once your borders are poor, it opens you up for the enemy to step in at any time and cause the attack. Ask yourself the question: why don't we have such a thing like in the heart of our country? In the hearts of all in different regions of our country? Why do we always have such attacks in interior localities of our country? Recently, we had the same attack that happened in Mamfe, where the Mamfe hospital was burned, was reduced to ashes. And that's a hospital that was inaugurated way back in 1961 by our first president, His Excellency late Amadou Ahidjo. So a whole monument was reduced down to ashes because the locality itself, as my brother Ella mentioned as well, shares borders with Nigeria, and it's difficult, very, very difficult, no matter how the security elements try to curb what comes in, what goes out. It's very difficult to to control that. So I think that that's just one of the reasons, because even if you look at the Boko Haram today, in the northern regions of our country, it's simply because they also come from neighboring countries into Cameroon. That's why we hear of Boko Haram attacks, now and then in these nearby localities or border localities with different African countries. So basically, I think that's the problem. And if the governments of these countries, be it the Central African sub-region, where we have Nigeria, we have Chad, we have Gabon, we have Equatorial Guinea, if our country doesn't really work in tandem with them to make sure that we secure these borders, then we always find ourselves in such a situation, because for now you don't know exactly who is the perpetrator. Is the person still in the country? Because as Wella mentioned, they are still being haunted, and as of now, according to sources, they have not yet been found. So where are they? Where are they hiding? Are they hiding in the bushes, or they have crossed over to neighboring countries? Is a $1 million question that denizens like us and one of citizens like us, we are asking questions. And as soon as we have answers, hopefully it can be just a way forward.
Now, Sylvanus, I'll come over to you now because Stanley mentioned the issue of Bakassi. And I know that in 1994, Cameroon went into the International Court and then they won ownership of the disputed Bakassi region. Now, what were the implications of the Bakassi conflict resolution for Cameroon? Because we're seeing lots of conflicts still happening in Cameroon.
Bakassi Peninsula, which was granted to Cameroon, and rightfully so, was a very, very positive move. I think if there's one thing that we'll have to remember President Paul Biya for, it's the peaceful resolution taken over the Bakassi Peninsula of Cameroon at a time when African countries, it's difficult to find them settle disputes through peaceful means. I give you an example like what's happening today between DR Congo and Rwanda, for example. Yeah. So I think that Cameroonians in their majority were satisfied with what has come out. But now this is what we're getting back. Now, the first thing you have to understand is that if you look at Bakassi as Cameroonian territory, what happened was, first of all, that those who were living in Bakassi were 90% Nigerians. Yeah. That's the first thing. Because if you look at our country, Cameroon, I want to say that we have a problem in Cameroon because our borders are always neglected. And the only thing that brought Bakassi to the spotlight was because a huge deposit of petrol was discovered in Bakassi. That's the first thing. So if petrol was never discovered in Bakassi, I can tell you here that Bakassi will have still been Nigeria. Maybe we'll have still been where we are with Bakassi Peninsula. Now, the war in Bakassi brought the world's attention towards Bakassi, believed to own 10% of world's gas reserve and all of that. Now, Cameroon fully engaged in Bakassi. And Nigeria, through the goodwill brotherly country, they succumbed to the judgment of the ICC, the International Court of Justice. And then Bakassi was awarded to Cameroon through the Green Tree Accord. Now, the next thing the government of Cameroon did was trying to push Cameroonians to move to Bakassi. Yeah. The government actually threw a lot of Cameroon's local currency, CFA francs, into Bakassi. Beautiful houses were built, nice roads were constructed by the Génie Militaire. We call them here in Cameroon, that's the engineering corps of the Cameroonian military. And then hospitals were built, schools were put in place so that they could encourage Cameroonians to move to Bakassi. But unfortunately for us, as we speak, very few Cameroonians have actually moved to Bakassi. Why? Because Cameroonians are not good at sea. Most of our Cameroonians, if you come to most of our coastline in Cameroon, you'll find Nigerians, you'll find Ghanaians, you find people from Togo. We are African in miniature, by the way. We're not complaining about that. We love it. So they control our coast. The fish, like now, you have mostly the Chinese who are taking charge of that. So Cameroonians did not move to Bakassi as the government would have expected. Now, two factors have been raised why you didn't have Cameroonians move to Bakassi swiftly. Now, if you build houses, the houses should be accompanied by water, by electricity, by telephone network, by radio signals. These are basics that people cannot live without these days. Now, if you build a beautiful house in the forest, no water, no electricity, it's difficult to get people moved towards that direction. Now, the second thing we also realize is that most of those who are operating in Bakassi now are offshore companies, companies who are drilling for oil, companies who are drilling for oil offshore, Chinese people who are doing their fishing with their big boats, and a handful of Cameroonians and then Nigerians who are actually out there. So the area is administered by Cameroon, but the population of Bakassi is Nigerian. Now, the first thing we are taking home today is that I tell people always that Cameroon and Nigeria, they are intertwined together. There is no way you're separating the two. So where you have Cameroonians, you have Nigerians. We are brothers and sisters. We are brotherly country. So I feel that the Nigerians who are in Bakassi share so much in the plight of English-speaking Cameroonians, who are the minority in Cameroon. And reasons being so because they have a history which is quite long. The British govern this part of Cameroon as part of Nigeria. I'm sure you're aware of that. And of course, they interact more with the English-speaking Cameroonians than the French-speaking Cameroonians. So they sympathize more with the English-speaking Cameroonians who are part of the Bakassi population. So I think that all of these has contributed to how these borderlines are actually shaped around Bakassi and in Cameroon. But there are many political observers, many economic experts who believe that just like so many other African countries, it doesn't suffice to build a house and say people should move. You must accompany this house by good road network, good water running through the taps, fine security must be put in place, electricity must be put in place, and then also encourage locals by giving them subsidies. For example, if the government can tell Cameroonians that we are putting in place 50 engine boats for fishing, train Cameroonians, they'll go down and fish and make a way out of life. But I think that the government is in this cause. It could be slow, but I think that is actually coming. So I think that's yeah.
All right, thank you, Sylvanus. I want to bring in Stanley here now because we've talked about the border controls. We talked about inequality between the English and French-speaking parts of Cameroon. We also talked about the uncontrolled movement of arms in and around Cameroon. Now, let's go to the root of the matter now. The government, which is supposed to secure the lives of people. Now, on 13 February, Paul Biya, who is almost 90 years, celebrated his 40th anniversary as head of state. But there has been reports suggesting a failing health. Now, with all this insecurity and security concerns going on, Stanley, are there still fears of a military takeover? And is Cameroon ready for a post-Biya?
It's a very dicey question there for me. But one thing is for sure. Cameroonians, of course, are becoming used to and are bracing up for that, because we all are humans, and definitely there will be a post President Paul Biya, and Cameroonians are just bracing up. It's true that we don't have a history of having presidents, because since we gained our independence in 1960, 1961 respectively, we've had just two presidents, late President Amadou Ahidjo and now President Paul Biya. Cameroonians, no matter the situation, we are upbeat that we'll come to that bridge. Definitely we'll cross it, because we have political parties in our country today, practicing multipartism, and during elections, why not? One of them may just win an election, and why not? But even if the president happens to leave the stage now, I think that Cameroon will somehow always say that people come and go, but institutions remain, and Cameroon is an institution. So that we are doing everything possible to make sure that, should we find ourselves in that situation, of course, someone who can, take us from there and make sure that we achieve our goals, and why not? The development should always be a priority. Personally, I think that our president has given just everything much for the number of time he has been in power, and Cameroonians, I think, if we are where we are today, is thanks to his stewardship, and the person I will pick up from there.
Okay, I'm going to throw this question back to Sylvanus now. He has been head of state for 40 years. He's almost 90 years. I mean, I saw reports of a lot of allegations placed on him, but I will not go to that question yet. But do you feel Cameroon is ready for a post-B, and are there still fears of military taking over?
Well, I think that my brother Metuge said it a while ago. The first thing I want to say that power is not, how long you're in power does not really matter. Most European countries were developed by dictators. Okay? People who spend a lot of time in power. So staying in power is not the agenda. It's the mission and the vision you have for your country that I think is what we should worry about. If you take a country like Italy, it was Mussolini. He took a long time in power. He developed that country. You take France, you must have heard about the Napoleonic Wars and all of that to develop France. So dictators do develop countries. People live long in power. You take Libya, before Gaddafi was actually killed, that was in 2011 by NATO forces. Libya was an El Dorado, a country you dreamed to be. So the president of Cameroon, Excellency President Paul Biya, has been in power, like you said, for 40 years. And I think that he once said, and I want to quote him, he says that in French, he says that power, I will translate, power is not given to you, but power is given to he who can handle it. That's President Paul Biya. And then secondly, we have to also understand Cameroon as a country. We are a country with more than 250 ethnic groups. We are a country with more than 250 different languages. I mean, if you speak, your neighbor will not hear. We are a country that has the 4 zones of Africa. We have the forest zone, we have the coastal zone, we have the savanna, and we have the Sahel. That's Cameroon. So the reality in Cameroon could be different from the reality in other African countries. We are Africa in miniature, and I think a bit of Africa is here. Now, you manage Cameroon with the reality of Cameroon. Now, talking about Cameroonians ready for post-Biya era, I think that Cameroonians are ready for whoever will come, when the time will come, to be president of our country, and we are looking forward to that. Cameroonians.
When the time will come, can his health still handle it? He's almost 90 years, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, you're a young man yourself. Wouldn't you want to see a young person lead the country of Cameroon?
The thing is that it's not necessarily a young person. I want to see a patriotic Cameroonian lead Cameroon. I want to see a Cameroonian that thinks good of Cameroon lead Cameroon. I want to see a Cameroonian that will put Africa, Cameroon and Africa first lead Cameroon. It's not about the age. We've had so many young people who have tried in Cameroon in politics and have only ended up embezzling and all of that. What I think is that we need a Cameroonian that believes in this country and wants to see this country go through. Truth be told, the President of the Republic has been there for 40 years. And of course, from what is happening on the ground in Cameroon, it tells you that his policies have grown weaker and he does not really have a grip over Cameroon. The first thing you see to analyze that is the current situation of the country. Cameroon is passing through a difficult economic times. I think our inflation rate should be higher than any other time in our history. Cameroon is going through a terrible crisis. We have the Anglophone crisis in the southwest, northwest region of Cameroon. We have Boko Haram crisis in the northern part of Cameroon, very active. We have the anti-Balaka or Seleka rebels from Central Africa trying to encroach from the eastern part of our country, which means that out of possibly 10 regions in Cameroon, only 3 are peaceful. And of course, the fourth one is about to be engulfed.
Okay, sorry, Sylvanus, because we're running out of time, I want to hear from Stanley now, because we've also I've seen reports of damning human rights abuses, allegations placed on President Paul Biya, and we see security. You talked about inflation going on in Cameroon at the moment. So what do you think that the government can do to bring about lasting peace in Cameroon?
I think lasting peace is just for us to come together, because Cameroonians are still begging for a genuine dialogue. We had one in 2019 where all the stakeholders of the Anglophone region were brought on board for us to discuss and chart the way forward, of this impasse that the country has been facing since 2015, 2016. I think that is for us to still come back together and why not evaluate ourselves, see exactly what we have achieved since we had the last, grand national dialogue in 2019, and also what's the way forward. Cameroonians are begging for that for quite a long time now, because if the war is still ongoing, it's because some people still feel like the resolutions that were arrived at, in Yaoundé in 2019 were not sustainable, were not genuine, and even the representatives who were there were not speaking on behalf of the people. Some people feel like they were just handpicked, just to come kind of soon. Why not, do what they have or say what they had to say on behalf of the people. So I think that we are still looking forward for
all right.
second national around a genuine dialogue that will bring all Cameroonians together, which are the way forward as a family. The Bible says in itself that we should always reason together as a family, because only then can we forge ahead as one big family in the country, Cameroon.
Thank you so much. When people start quoting biblical codes, it makes me put a question mark there. But thank you so much, Njeck, Sylvanus, and Metuge Stanley, all from the very southwest region of Cameroon, for joining us on this conversation. Thank you.
You're very much welcome. And of course, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. All right, so this is where we'll draw the curtains of today's edition of The Conversation. Do join me again on Friday for another edition of The Conversation. I am Rita Omwodia. Bye-bye.